morning. When I went back to school for the third time, my then 5-year-old son told his kindergarten class, "My mom's going back to school because she didn't get it right the first time." He was right, actually. My daughter was 9 at the time, and she was old enough to invite me into the obligatory first day of school photo. So when my husband said, "Say cheese," there were 3 of us smiling back at him. I think we all study who we are, and my life was chock full of really exciting and wonderful things like work and family, community, and volunteering. And so I was in this work-life conundrum, and I thought it was all about the collaboration between the parts of life. But I don't think we have it all figured out. This is the Japanese word karoshi. It means death from overwork, which we sort of laugh about. But in Japan, it's actually a clinical term, and its incidence is on the rise. In fact, there's some new laws in Japan just in the last month or so that limit working time and insist on people taking vacations in order to reduce death from overwork. In my research, I found that lots and lots of people experience negative spillover between work and family and work. Since 1972, we've done this thing called the General Social Survey in the US. And we've been asking people, does your work spill over into your life and your life into your work? And people say yes. And people say that they're stressed at work. From the ASA to the APA and the AMA, people are stressed. Men and women are stressed. Moms and dads are stressed. People with kids and without kids are stressed. All generations are stressed. And so there's something we're not getting quite right about the work-life conundrum. So in a few words, how do you think about work? In that nanosecond in your brain where you do word association, what do you come up with when I say work? Do you think of hard or tedium or difficult or politics? One woman, when I asked this question, yelled out, "PTO!" What she thought of when she thought of work was her paid time off. Another person, when we asked, "What's your best part of your day?" said, "Well, it's 5 o'clock when I get to go home." So there's something about work that we aren't getting quite right if that's our response. On the other hand, what do you think about if I ask you your definition of life? Do you think about family and fullness and fulfillment? Usually we're not waiting for the end of that. And so I think there's something about an idea of abundance in life. What if we could think about work and life as a holistic whole, and what if we could have such positive words about work as we typically do about life? There's so much coming at us. It's disruption. We've got more time-saving devices than we've ever had, and yet we don't have time for anything. We say, "I don't have time." And I think our perspective on work-life balance hasn't necessarily served us as well as it could, because balance is about a precariousness. It's about a trade-off. It's about not having all we want. It's about making tough choices between things. What if instead it were about work-life integration? What if it were about still having boundaries between work and life, but we get to choose how we manage those boundaries? We get to flow between those boundaries in the way that works best for us. And what if it was about abundance and fulfillment? In my research, I found out that when companies provide work-life supports, benefits, policies, practices, organizational norms that support people, they get better results. They get attraction and retention, productivity and performance, and it's good for people too. People get things like engagement and commitment, and so doing the right thing for people turns out to be a really good idea for organizations as well. So remember grammar in elementary school? There's that funny English grammatical difference between bring and take. Bring is about the destination. Take is about the starting point. And so I think we can change our perspective and think about how we bring work to life, how we bring fulfillment and abundance. And I think our perspective makes all the difference. This Shiba Inu puppy seeing its shadow says, "Holy cow, I'm Batman." Or the turtle who's fallen onto his back and is admiring the sky says, "Oh my gosh, I'm flying." I think perspectives matter. And so let me tell you about some ideas that I've got. I've been noticing some things, and I packaged them up into 3 layers of idea. First of all, I think it's about you and me. It's about relationships and connection. We know more about the brain today than we've ever known. When we experience social rejection, like somebody leaves you out of something or hurts your feelings, we experience that in the pain center of our brain. It's exactly the same place that we experience physical pain. If someone socks us in the gut or kicks us in the shin, we experience it in exactly the same part of our brain. The same is true of social great experiences. So if I had a great time with friends, I was out for coffee and we were laughing, or I had a great time with my family, I experienced that in the pleasure center of my brain, which is exactly the same place where it's finally getting nicer in Michigan, and I loved that chocolate chip cookie dough flurry I had last week. We experience it in exactly the same pleasure center of our brain. And when we have great social relationships, we get a hit of oxytocin. That's the neurotransmitter that makes us feel really good, happy, and wonderful. So why does brain chemistry matter? Because we seek to repeat things that make us feel great and avoid those that don't. We are social beings. And there's something else I want to tell you about. There's this thing called binding force. My daughter's high school chemistry teacher will tell me that all analogies fall apart. So let me be cautious about this, one will only go so far. But at the center of every atom is a proton and a neutron. Those are held together by something called binding force. Binding force is 6,000 billion times greater than gravity. Oh my gosh. So the thing that makes up all of us, the tiniest version of that thing, isn't a thing at all. It's connections. So we've talked about the brain and we've talked about atoms and chemistry a bit. Let me tell you a story on this part of the journey. Once upon a time, there was an old woman, and she was hiking in the mountains, and her village was extremely economically depressed. People were starving. So she was hiking, and all of a sudden, she saw a stranger who was terrifying to her. He was bedraggled, and he was starving, so he was incredibly dangerous. And he said to her, "I need food!" And so she bent down and opened her bag and got ready to give some bread to the stranger, and he saw that she also, in her bag, had a precious stone. A stone that was so precious it was worth millions, and he would never be hungry again. And so he said to her, "Give me the stone too." And so she did, unhesitatingly. And he went off, and she went off. A few days later, she saw him coming at her again, and she was frightened because she didn't know what to expect. And he said, No, it's okay, it's okay. I want to give you back that stone that you gave me. And in return, I want you to give me what it was inside of you that allowed you to give that to me so unhesitatingly. I think that's something about bringing and giving to relationships. I think it's something about the importance of human connection. And I think it's not so much about a strategy, but about a mindset and a perspective. So I think I haven't got this all figured out yet. I'm figuring it out. But I think it's something about reaching out actively, building strong relationships, and supporting others. So we've talked about you and me. Let's talk about work and life and the ideas of purpose and passion. Because there's no container for work and for life. They flow together. And we all want to build cathedrals, not just lay bricks. Purpose is about 3 things. Purpose is about a sense of something bigger than myself that I am connected to. Purpose is also about how we matter to that thing that's bigger, how what we're doing matters to that bigger thing. And purpose is also about people. It's not enough to have some abstract purpose concept. We'll be the biggest company, we'll make the most revenue, we'll grow by 15% a year. It's got to be about people, how we help people, how we connect to people. So it's about something bigger, it's about mattering to the something bigger, and it's about the something bigger being about people. When we ask people in research over and over again, they say they would trade off salary for purpose because they want to be part of something bigger. Buckner says that passion and the world's needs are where we find our purpose. where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. There's a lottery test that's been going on for a while. Since 1995, there's this research that has asked people across 7 countries, across different kinds of work, across genders, if you won the lottery, would you still work? And people say, between 93% and 59%, depending on the year and depending on the kind of work and depending on the country, yes, they would work. Because work has intrinsic value. We want to contribute. We want to create. It's interesting, Richard Address in his book, Seekers of Meaning, says one of the worst things we can do to people is say, no, we don't need your help. We're good. You relax. You sit it out. That's one of the worst things we can do because we get meaning from work. We get meaning from our purpose. So I've been gathering work-life stories, and a friend of mine, Tom, says, that feels pretty overwhelming to me, that find your purpose. That feels like a really heady thing that I need to figure out. What I do is I just find what I'm good at and do that. Find what you're good at and do that. So we've talked a little bit about you and me. We've talked about work and life. Let's talk about people and organizations, about the idea of both speaking up and listening. The Chinese have a character that means to listen with a virtuous heart. It's a rich character. It has elements of eyes, ears, you, me, the heart, and undivided attention. It is about a gift of time. I think in our always-on, utterly distracted world, the best thing we can do is pay really close attention to each other, to listen with a virtuous heart. Someone told me a long time ago that children spell love T-I-M-E. That you can't have quality time with anyone, with each other, unless you've got a sense of quantity. And in the tiny bits of quantity that we're spending, even if it's not much, to spend that in undivided, virtuous listening to each other, I think has something to do with abundance and fulfillment and bringing work to life. To go fast, go alone. To go far, go together. This is an African proverb that's always meant a lot to me. Rath and Harder talk about some research in their book related to engagement. And they talk about who's engaged and who's not. And they say the people who are most engaged have leaders who encourage them and recognize them and give them really positive regard. People who are less engaged have leaders who are critical or give them a hard time about things or make them feel like they're not doing a good job. The people who are least engaged or disengaged are the people who have leaders who are ignoring them, who don't spend their time with that person and who aren't necessarily giving the attention that they could. So I haven't got this all figured out, but I think it's something about listening deeply, sharing openly, and respecting unfailingly. So I think if we're going to bring work to life, it's about you and me, it's about work and life, and it's about people and organizations. So let me leave you with a couple thoughts, but let me come back to my children, whom I started with. So now they are 13 and 17, and we were talking a little bit about public speaking. We all want to be able to know and do effectively. So my son's advice to me was, Mom, sound confident. People will listen more if you sound confident. My daughter's advice was, make sure your fly is up. So as we all move on to both know and do, I think action is the key. So there's a Hebrew word, yada. Yada means to know and to do. It is utterly connected, the knowing and the doing. People know us by our actions, and they know us based on how we behave toward them. I had a leader years ago who used to say in the business all the time, "You're behaving so loudly, I can hardly hear what you're saying." When we really know something, we take action on it. And when we're taking action on it, we're really demonstrating that knowledge to ourselves and to the world. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So I think it's something about taking action, giving it a shot. Arbeidsglid is Danish. We started with karoshi, which was death from overwork. Arbeidsglid means happiness at work, and it is a Danish alternative for us. I think we can start planting trees together in order to bring work to life and to create abundance and fulfillment. Thank you.